Welcome to another episode of The Trenches. This is crypto's #1 live stream where we chat with the most important founders, especially those at the application layer. We are absolutely thrilled to have two guests today. The one is Adam from Football.Fun. If you don't know, Football.Fun is the hottest crypto fantasy sports app right now. They have done hundreds of millions in volume over the past 2 weeks since they launched. They are growing rapidly, building a very large community, and we are thrilled to have Adam on the show talking with us, as well as my partner, Mike Dudas. I was on his podcast last week. He's on my podcast this week. Mike and I both invested in Football.Fun and are users of the product and big fans. And so really excited to have a great conversation here around Football.Fun and the thesis. So maybe to get us started, Adam, I wanted to start with your view on the thesis. And I remember when you were pitching this, what really resonated with me, or the way I interpreted and built a framework, was it combines the best elements of sports betting with the best elements of fantasy sports, right? Sports betting is impersonal in nature, but fantasy sports are relational and long-term. Sports betting is transactional versus this is a league or a longer-term game that people are playing. And so I think you're really defining a new category here. Walk us through the thesis and how you came up with the design and the approach of Football.Fun, and what's some of the feedback you're getting from users in terms of why they love the product.
Yeah, thanks, Carl, and thanks for inviting me on, guys. I think this has been a long time coming. Really, certainly in my head, I've always been a player of these sorts of games. The kind of core concept of what you're doing is super simple, and there's nothing wrong with it. You pick players, you own them, they perform in real life. Chat about it with your friends, you share the wins, you make fun of your friends when it goes wrong, you win rewards at the end. Like, perfect. Sounds simple, but the economics behind these games, particularly when you get real money involved, has never truly worked for the kind of end consumer. I felt there was a gap there. I've had previous experience working with a lot of different fantasy platforms. I used to work with SoRare. I built them a free-to-play game. Tried to help them onboard new users, and that was their best onboarding route, but it was still very tough. And I realized that there's just some fundamental issues there as to why that is. And I think if you look back at the 2021 first wave of like consumer sports crypto, everyone looked at that and went, that makes perfect sense, right? Like, sports, people love speculation. Everything that works in crypto is around speculation. There must be a banger product there, right? So we had Top Shot. It went started actually quite slowly. I was looking at the numbers today. Like, we have gone so much faster than Top Shot and SoRare did in their first weeks, which is really quite remarkable. And it actually took them a while to gain traction. But they really did. So when it comes to like the actual peak of where they got, we're still way far ahead, but we've just moved a bit faster in that early phase. There's so much room to grow. But what you saw with Top Shot was, hey, people like to open packs and own things, but there's no game, right? So first of all, you need a game. So we've been building this for over a year. Like, I think a lot of people on crypto Twitter are like, where the hell did this come from? Actually, that's because our marketing only really switched on 2 weeks ago. We've been building this quietly, and we had a small test group of about 2,000 people, but we didn't shout too much about it. We just built the product first. And then 2 weeks ago, we turned on Pro, and it's just been absolutely crazy ever since, in a good way. But yeah, I think that's our thesis. Build like a really simple, fun game. Mike, I think I always nod along when we share podcasts together, and you talk about like the kind of fundamentals behind all products that do really well in this space. They're just really fun. They have like high volatility and they move fast, and so there are some things we share with Pump.fun in that regard, even though they're like completely different products. They're super fun, chaotic almost. And they're liquid. So we're effectively, people look at us as like a sports app. If you look at like the underlying bones of it, it's actually DeFi, or like a sort of financial grade product. So yeah, that's the kind of overall thesis that we're going for. And why do people like it? I guess in this early phase, the same reason people liked Pump.fun, for like really early excitement. We've had, I don't know if you've poked your nose into our Discord at all, but it is absolute chaos, in a good way. People are like, this is like 2021.
Like looking at like the Pump.fun homepage, or like, honestly, I thought I was going to have like a seizure reading the Discord.
And when we do the new player drops as well, because this is like, our thesis is we're not actually selling these tokens or players. Like, our thesis is actually give them to the players at the absolute rock bottom price to provide the minimum liquidity. Again, a little bit like Pump.fun in a slightly different way. We don't make significant revenue on that. We have our sort of market fee. So we give away like the early early opportunity goes to the fan. We then own the shop long term. And that is what excites them. They're like, holy shit, I'm getting your Marl for like nothing, or like the same price as like any other player. We always drop them at the same price. And yeah, we've also like tried to target that at like the real fans. So having the beta for free under the radar, part of that was testing. Part of it was like identifying the real guys, like the real guys who are going to carry this to, long after crypto Twitter, like degens are done flipping. These are the guys who will become the whales. And we want to make our own whales, because that is, if you remember that about Top Shot didn't just like invite whales to play, it made them. Like a lot of early crypto people made it in Top Shot, and we wanted to bring that back, because they become like their whole personality becomes your game, because they made it in Football.Fun, and those people stick around forever and become your super fans. So that's what we want to do.
Yeah, our partner Surge was actually a whale on Top Shot, and so as you know, Mike and Surge were coming up with the name Six Man Ventures to start the fund. The fact that Top Shot was doing so well and was at peak had an impact on the actual name we landed on, Six Man Ventures, which of course is a basketball reference. So we've been in and out of fantasy sports and crypto sports for years, and so I think that's why we were so excited to see the initial launch and success that you've had.
Yeah, and Top Shot was the same kind of thrill of excitement of discovery, where it was like completely novel relative to what had come before, right? At that point, it was obviously the NFT form factor. Anybody could access it anywhere. But there was like a social element and digital element to trading these cards that was electric. And honestly, the economics were the same for early people too, right? Like I remember buying a couple $1,000s worth of Football.Fun packs just to check it out and try it out early on. It was very similar to NBA Top Shot. If you were early, there was no lines. Like you grab them. I think I bought $2,500 or $3,000 worth of packs, and then you look like 4 or 5 months later, and you're like, "Whoa, I got $60,000. Like what happened here?" Everybody was talking about it. The challenge with NBA Top Shot, the challenge was so rare with a lot of kind of called predecessor, either collectibles or fantasy sports products. And I'm sure we'll talk about this though. Has just been how do you keep the economies sustainable? How do you not overinflate supply? How do you not, turn it into a situation where over time just everything's devalued? And I know you've thought a tremendous amount about that. Excited to hear more.
Yeah, let's jump directly into that, and especially like building on that point or that question. One of the interesting things as I was reading the timeline that people like about this is, meme coins are fun, they're great, they're volatile. The issue, of course, is there is an insider cabal on some of these coins that very heavily dictate the price. And as part of that, it makes it more challenging to be an external observer and try to win in the game of meme coins over the longer term. What's interesting here is there's actually essentially a real world oracle. There's real players playing real sports, and those actually influence the amount of tokens and your capacity to win in the game. So let's talk a little bit about the sustainability of the game and how you're thinking about that and how you actually bring together this external real world performance within the internal dynamics of the game itself.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think in some ways, meme coins, I was not a big meme coin guy. I think one of the reasons was I didn't always understand why the dog with the hat was better than the cat with the bat or whatever. Like, I kind of didn't get it, and probably it's because there was nothing to get. Like, it just was. Like, it was just like a social thing. A lot of people loved that element. I think what you've got in Football.Fun is kind of similar volatility or similar uh, kind of similar kind of market action, at least in the early phase. But I feel like I understand like why things move up and down. Like, if a player scores a hat trick, they go up because people think they're better. If they break their leg, they're going to go down because that's that. So I think a lot of people who maybe didn't engage with the meme coin phenomenon will look at this and go, hey, that might be my thing where I feel I've got an edge because I do understand this stuff. So I think it's almost like, yeah, they're obviously very different products, but there's a lot of the bones of it that does feel similar in many ways. And yeah, the amount of thought and effort that has gone into solving the economics, the sustainability, making it feel good, um, and feel rewarding, but also be a game that is here for the long term. That's the real challenge of building a game like this. The actual core concepts, we have innovated in various ways. There's the squad system where you don't have to pick a lineup every week is new, but I would say like the economics is the bit that getting right is the most important thing in this game. So part of that is, hey, we don't burn your assets every year. I think that's one of the big pain points on any kind of NFT based game. Their business model sets them up to, they have to sell you new cards every season, and that is that. Their business doesn't work. Therefore, that kind of core principle of I own my stuff is undermined. So we wanted to solve that. That's why we have this like transaction fee based model. Once you buy Yamal, who is 18 years old, if he's still playing and at the top of the sport at 33, that will be the same token that is used as his primary asset in the game.
It's a great promise. It's a great promise.
Yeah, but it's also a sustainable promise because we have that continuing revenue from the trading fees. There is also for, you do have to prevent that guy from buying Yamal today and still he can't be earning at 33. If Yamal's, in 12 years' time, he can't still be earning if he hasn't also contributed during that time. It's just not possible. So we have this mechanic called contracts where they play a certain number of games. If their games run out, you stop qualifying for rewards, but you still own the underlying asset and the token, and it's freely treatable. So we actually don't need to really charge people for contracts. If they're actively trading, that's actually going to be quite heavily discounted because we don't need to double charge people. So we're looking at like casino models or like casino loyalty retention schemes where you get like discounts for volume users. So I think one of the early factors of the product is that they don't always understand why there is a fee because actually the real sports fans tend to not care. But guys who have come from DeFi and are looking at this as like, they're looking at it almost like it's a DEX where they're competing on like wafer thin fees. We're not competing on fees. Like, we're competing on the best entertainment experience. And we take the fee largely actually to push that back into the economy. So one usage of that. So we've made over $2 million in the first 2 weeks revenue. That makes our company stronger. It allows us to do stuff. It allows us to build. And we're going to be bringing out very soon a 40% revenue share because we need to deepen the liquidity in the marketplace. So if you look at the market today, it's actually red. Like, we had this incredible run up, 2 mil market cap to 150 million very quickly, and then obviously at some point people go, oh, like, should we relax a little bit here? And you kind of get this like inevitable almost retrace. But we think once people realize that we're actually quite consistent and we're here to stay, they'll realize that we're not just like a meme coin casino that's been here for 10 days. And I think it's just going to take like consistency for us to to get there, because I get it, right? Like most people got introduced to Football.Fun because it had been everywhere. Every other Twitter post, every group chat, people are sharing these like screenshots of $1 million, and obviously not everyone can realize that. Like it's a really young market, but what I would say is we have so much room to grow. We may have been like faster out of the gates than Top Shot, and so rare. We've also rate limited ourselves, by the way. Like there are buy limits in place on the market where whales can't come in and just hoover up all of the Yamal and become like the Yamal baron for the rest of eternity, because that would just be bad for the economy. Yep. So the growth we've seen has also been rate limited, like quite deliberately, because we are here for a long-term experience.
And you need to make sure that the people that come into Football.Fun a year from now can also have a great experience. To your point, if the only time to get involved is in the first 48 hours, then the project is going to be hard to be sustainable. And so I think the approach you took of, and I'm going to play this back for the audience to make sure I understand this correctly. You can buy a player and you're going to hold them. So if that player goes up, that player goes down, you're essentially part of that. But these players obviously are earning during that period of time. And which is the equivalent, you could say, is like staking an asset versus just holding the underlying. And in order to get the rewards of this player and to be able to buy more pack or get more packs and break more packs, you actually need to be playing the game. And so I view these as like, if you're just a pure speculator, there is an avenue for you to play and to enjoy. But then if you want to be engaged, there's actually more opportunity to win and build, notoriety and wealth over the longer term. Is that a correct framing? Is that the vision that you're aiming for?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. I think you can, there are people who are actually just sort of buying the players and they're not planning to refresh the contracts. They just want to play it more of like a sort of passive trading experience. But then they don't win the rewards. But that might be fine. That actually increases the reward pool for the guys who are active. So if they don't get the share of the rewards, it just gets given to the people who do. So what you then see is actually like a whole new level of strategy to the game, where you start looking at the players that are not owned. And if you're like the enthusiast player, you'll start targeting the value and say, hey, look, this player is unpopular right now. I think I'm going to bet against everyone else and say, I'm going to target that player. Because if you do that, your share of the rewards is greater. So that is yet to come, because currently by default, we just gave everyone every contract, but there's like a new layer of kind of depth yet to be unlocked.
Cool. Let's talk a little bit about drops, because I think one of the things we've seen across both your platform and also Collector Crypt, which is a trading card, like tokenized trading card platform where they do sports, they do Pokemon cards, etc. Sort of these drop experience and these gotcha machines have been really successful in crypto so far. So let's say somebody's listening to this live stream. They're not, they're new to Football.Fun. They saw a tweet and they're looking for the best opportunities to get engaged. Just talk a little bit about the drop process when you have them. What's going on under the hood? And as a user, what is my opportunity to participate in these drops?
Yep. There's two things coming up. We have one, which is the kind of like when a new player joins, when a new player is opened for trading, they start at the 0.0125 cents level. One guy gets that price, and there's like 10,000 people there, like smashing the buy button to like try and get it first. And like obviously, the earlier you happen to get through in that absolute chaos, the better price you get. So on the one hand, that's like a massive kind of technical challenge, and in the normal world, you would not deliver that experience to kind of mainstream users, but crypto users just seem to thrive on that chaos. They like that moment where they might be the one who gets like the best price. In terms of like how to do it, it is not a complete free for all. So we have like it's kind of a meme, but like we do this kind of good lads and bad lads thing. So which is like if you're a good lad, you trade normally, you actually want to play the game, you probably played some of beta, or you've like been playing in the last couple of weeks, and you haven't like just come in and extracted from the economy immediately, then your access to these drops is higher and easier. If you've just come in because you thought this was like the meme coin casino and you've bet, you've put money in and then you've immediately taken out 20K, you just don't get access to the cool drop thing next. And that's our way of like basically making it higher expected value to help us build than to just kind of like clip off the edges of us. Because the second we became like well known or popular, you do attract that kind of person as well. He's just like, oh, I'm not interested in this game, but I'm just going to come in and flip. And I've had like people crying at me in DMs, like, oh, why am I paying a fee on extracting value from your game? I'm like, well, because it's intentional. It's literally like, it is literally an appropriate tax to levy on someone who is extracting value from the economy at this time if they're not planning on playing the game long term. And that's been one of like the most controversial parts, because crypto native or DeFi people are not used to that, right? They're used to just completely fast liquid trading on a DEX, but it's not quite the same experience. Like, this is actually an entertainment product, where we're trying to build and funnel value to the real players of the game. So I've been quite robustly defending that, and I think it's there's a lot of people, certainly the real players of our game, seem delighted with that approach. The people who don't like it do tend to be the extractors who wouldn't stick around long anyway.
Yep. So I guess it's interesting because in crypto, you normally have open ecosystems, and in Web2 games, you have completely closed ecosystems. And so I think you're trying to bridge these two. And I imagine that between open and completely closed, it's a spectrum, and you're starting here. And I imagine over time you might find, again, you talk a lot about in the documentation and your posts about live ops, how this is not a point in time, this is the game forever. It's kind of like any real Web2 game that has large audiences. There's teams and teams of live ops constantly monitoring metrics, making updates to make sure the game is sustainable and healthy and fun for the vast majority of users that are engaged. So
Yep.
I think it's interesting looking at that. And I do think over the long term, sports bettors and sports enthusiasts that may not have the time or energy to participate, it would be interesting to see what is the right vector for them to be able to participate in size while still maintaining the great experience for the true long-term players of the game. And it seems like it's going to be an ongoing iteration. And where do we exactly find that right balance?
Yeah, it will be. I mean, the measures that are in place now are as strong as they'll ever be, because when you're starting out, you obviously have low liquidity, high volatility. If we just opened this up, the kind of real sports fans would just get absolutely decimated by the hardcore degens. Like, they would just run rings around them all day. That would be terrible for like the long-term growth of the platform. So there's a good reason we do it. But as that liquidity deepens, and people get better at the game and more experienced at the game, you can start taking those guardrails off, and sort of just open it up and be as open as we can be, whilst kind of growing the platform in the right way.
Got it. Maybe switching gears a little bit, Dudas. It's actually funny because most of the time as investors, we don't actually get to talk about why we invested in something. There's actually not a platform, but like, given we all invested in Football.Fun, we know Adam, we're all sports fans. Maybe curious, what about you when you saw the pitch resonated above and beyond, most of the deals that we see, and led you to be high conviction, this is a deal we have to do out of the fund?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, well, we've hit on some of the points, but ultimately liquid tokens are better form factor than NFTs, right? Like, that's just crystal clear. You can buy them in smaller denominations. They're instant. You can create liquidity pools around them. They have more liquidity. You can kind of like control an economy like a lot more easy with them. They're more flexible in terms of syncs and other things. You have staking flexibility. In addition, we've seen models like this, like where there are kind of like almost like proprietary tokens in a way. Like, to some extent, it's not easy to replicate this version of the token. Like, one of the big problems with meme coin launch pads is like tokens get PvP'd. There's no canonical one. So it was crystal clear when we saw this is that really good form factor. And then when we look at companies, it's like often it's not just like the idea that is the contrarian thing. It's like, who's going to be the founder? Like, it's always, if anytime you pick one thing, and we've seen 100 prediction market pitches, right, in the last year, and we've invested in one, right? I consider this a prediction market.
Yep.
Some people are calling it that. So it's like, okay, great idea, great form factor, it's the right time. And then Adam was obviously the right founder. I mean, he's been thinking about this since, like, I don't know, like 10 years ago. Like, you look at his resume, you look at his on-chain activity, you talk to anybody who knows him, and he like lives and breathes this as far back as, you know, even before So Rare days, and knew kind of like every reason things previously hadn't succeeded. One, two, kind of really strongly opinionated. Like, we want to back opinionated founders where, like, when I give somebody feedback, I don't want them to just like take it and be like, oh, wow, like that's like, you know, smart investor, or they have like a strong opinion. Like, you want them to consider it and then be like, maybe, like, or, you know, or that doesn't make sense. And I think what I've seen, particularly, fortunately, we've seen over the past 10 days, I mean, just in this chat alone, where we have like, you know, 70 people, I think there's 70 messages, you know, telling Adam why, you know, this or that about his particular product model or whatever might not work. And what he's fantastic about in every single channel is thoughtfully and unemotionally, you know, basically responding and telling people, hey, this is why we made this design choice when there's a million other ones. So lives and breathes it, and then is resilient. So knows that things are going to change. And, you know, we're 2 weeks into building this product. When we looked at it, you know, he already had a working beta that was incredible, had, you know, 150 plus like diehard players in it who loved it and were giving brutal feedback day in and day out. So just, it was an aha. It was one of those rare deals at 6 Ventures where like every partner looked at it and was like, oh yeah, let's do this, you know? And the last piece is like, I like to invest in things that I enjoy. And this is just a lot of fun. You know, it was funny how we showed it to some VCs. Like, I don't get soccer. And it's like, that's fine, you know? But you know, we really enjoy this. It's a product that I use myself. That's not always going to be the case. You're going to invest in things you don't use, but this one really hit home, and we could identify with it, which then makes it much more authentic to go out and talk about it and encourage other people to use it and say, hey, you know, you're going to spend some time here, and you know, you're going to like meet interesting people. And by the way, you know, for a lot of people, it's a behavior they already do. They're watching these games, they're following these players, they're talking about them nonstop. And now you add a little bit of fun speculation to it and game planning and things of that nature, and it becomes social and awesome.
Yeah. And remind me, Mike, you're a Liverpool fan?
Yeah. So I'm a Liverpool supporter. And unfortunately, there's no real exciting, you know, MLS is kind of like, it's not even like the minor leagues. It's sort of like leagues. So unfortunately, I don't have any other good options. So I picked up Liverpool back in like 2010. And I'm a fan of the New York Mets, Jets, and Knicks. And I was looking for a similarly, you know, sort of team that hadn't won in decades. And Liverpool at that point was like 20 years into just a really dry run. Unfortunately, they turned around. Last 15 years have been beautiful. 14 years have been beautiful. So I won that trade.
Yeah, no, that's great. Always looking for alpha and value, right? Mike, all the time. Well, funny story. Mike's son, when they were traveling, picked up a PSG jersey, much to the chagrin of Mike. Mike gets home. What are you doing?
No, it was even worse. So I'm shopping. We're in London this past March April, and me and our daughter went shopping in Soho, and my wife went shopping with our son in Soho. They go to like the football jersey store. Again, we're Liverpool supporters. He's got a, you know, Salah jersey and everything. We get back to the hotel room. They get back to the hotel room. He walks in wearing an Everton jersey.
Everton,
dude, I literally almost like fell on the floor. I mean, that was like, my gosh, like, return this. Anyway, and man, it did make the flight back with us, and we've hidden it deep in the closet.
That's like a deliberate provocation. Was it on purpose?
It was stunning. He didn't even know. He just likes blue. Yeah. He has a lot to learn, this kid. Anyway, I got to jump off, gents, to another chat. Awesome chatting, Adam. And I'll see you back in the Telegram war zone in a little bit. All right.
See you, Mike.
Nice to see you again. Take care.
Well, the team I'm the biggest fan of would have to be AFC Richmond. That's certainly my number one team that I follow, Mr. Ted Lasso himself.
Nice.
All right, Adam, we're going to take some questions here. One of the things I love about live streaming, by the way, is authentic. This is not scripted. This is not cut. This is just Adam, Mike, and I having a conversation. And I think that's really powerful. So as part of that, we also get live engagement with the audience. So I'm going to go through some of these questions. I just want to first start with like, what's next? In other words, you have tournaments that are running now. What do you view as the key vectors of growth for this product? Is it more tournaments? Is it more of a social experience with friends? Is it expanding to new leagues? Walk us through, like, as you're both live opping and improving the game real time, what do you see as the biggest vectors of growth coming up?
Yep. I think there's obviously the tournaments and people like learning how to actually play the game. And I think we've attracted a lot of people maybe through drops that we're actually converting into football fans as well, which I think is really exciting. There's a whole like, let's run this back play. So the reason we've been kind of rate limiting ourselves is to give lots more people time to get here. So we're doing another founders pack sale. So we started off by doing like a founders pack sale to like our core community, like people who've been playing the game. And that was for like the first 100 players that joined the platform. So they got like absolutely early entry price and also didn't have to fight on like fastest finger first. They were just able to buy at leisure. So we're going to do another one of those soon for like the next 100 players to join the platform. So all this chaos is going to continue, where they then get slowly activated for trading over the next month. So you will see more of the same. I think it's been like a really effective, chaotic, fun marketing tool that's been making people like, really excited and seeing the game. So there'll be more of that. You will also see just more consistency and like, hey, people will discover the game through those drops as well. So those are the kind of big things. And then, we'll be, come October, we're going to be turning our attention to, we're already working on it. It's not a secret because I get asked all the time, but like we'll be then showcasing more of like the next dot funds, because we're actually called Sport.Fun. So NFL is like so heavily requested like all the time, followed by NBA and even other sports too. So the way we replicate the majority of the underlying technology and then work with, we're openly hiring now for like guys who are like NFL sickos who will adapt some of the game experience to make sure that it feels authentic to their fans. But we can actually use much of the underlying infrastructure. So by early next year, we want to have like the first other sports out as well.
See, the issue you have is by misnaming it Football.Fun instead of Soccer.Fun. Now, when you go into the real market of American football, you got to come up with a new name. That's the biggest challenge for you.
Yeah, well, there's a large continent that might disagree. That has been one of the key discussion points all week as to whether it is soccer or football. I will maintain it's football for the rest of my life. But, there we go. That argument will never end, I guess.
Yeah. All right. So question from Midas. So good evening. Can you explain the decision to double TPSP but nerf rewards and packs by 75%? The economics are not properly set up and it's not possible to win, even with skill, because of the hidden house edges and taxes. For example, you allow unpurchasable players to enter tournaments and win rewards, effectively taxing rewards from normal users. Curious, Adam, if you have any initial thoughts on that question from Midas 10X.
I think some of that is just sort of misunderstanding around how the game works, perhaps. So the packs don't, we're not nerfing rewards. We actually increase them. So when we set the reward pool for the current tournament, the market was like 5 times smaller. So what we do is it's kind of 75% math and about 25% kind of quant judgment, where we look at the amount of money that is actually in the marketplace and the liquidity, and we say, okay, what number makes sense for this tournament that will feel rewarding to most people, but actually doesn't register as like a sort of new supply event that kind of changes prices. So some of the difficulties we've had is that like people are struggling to adjust to a model which is dynamic, because particularly if they've come from another game, what they're used to doing is looking at the numbers, trying to work out like an ROI from like, okay, how much does it cost to extend a contract? How much does it cost to trade versus how much I might get back. And you can't do it in this game because it is dynamic. So we will get to a point, and I'm not saying we've got it perfectly, but every tournament must feel rewarding to the people who win, not the people who don't win, because it is a skill game. And I think we've also had this, is that a lot of people are like, hey, where's my rewards? And we're like, you didn't win, dude. Like, it is actually a skill-based game. The bottom 25% who finish in the kind of like esports style rankings, they just don't get any skill points. And that is kind of like deliberate design choice. I think it is, sports people are competitive. And you know, the rewards are weighted quite heavily towards the top of that leaderboard. We'll obviously adjust and play with that until it feels kind of right. But yeah, there's a kind of mixed, you get a very different experience depending on which players you picked, whether you were successful or not. So we've got some people who are doing extremely well, other people who got nothing. The problem with that is, as one of our mods was telling me today, if say you've got hundreds of people in a Discord and 1 in 4 of them didn't get anything, they're going to be quite loud. But that is still a lot of people. So yeah, we need to sort of think about that. But again, quite stubborn on the idea that this is a skill game and it is not, and everyone's a winner game, because it just kind of has to be that way. But yeah, I think we also need to do more to explain our model. We're not entirely sure like how much to reveal. So if you look at like esports titles, like a League of Legends, for example, they don't tell you how the skill system works. All the math is hidden, so it can't be gamed. So part of the skill of being a League of Legends player is like kind of speculating on what moves that rank. But for the average League of Legends player, they kind of forget about it. They turn up, they play, they win, they do well, skill ranking goes up. What we're asking players to do here is be like, actually, I'm not going to focus on the skill rating. I'm going to focus on who is actually the best in real life. And I'm just going to pick the players that are good. And our skill rating system should sort that out. Like, the people who deserve it should actually go to the top. And most people should not have to worry about that skill rating. So that's, yeah, it is a really new model. And it doesn't surprise me at all that it's going to take time for us to learn like the best way to explain that new model, and for the players to kind of get used to it as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't thought a lot about that, but my intuition is that transparency is good in that it's actually not something you can fully game. Like, I don't know how these players are going to perform. I mean, nobody knows if Mbappe is going to get 3 goals or 0 in a game. So, given that, I think what's interesting is if you choose the right players, and your documents do have, hey, this is how many points you get for different types of activities depending on how people perform. What's cool about that is if you do perform really well, it's not just I got a lot of skill, but if you wanted to dig into it, people can see, oh, wow, that was a really good pick based on the number of points that each players in the squad got. And then it kind of creates this new level of virality, not just sharing I won, but these are some of the picks that drove that. And I think especially it depends if you're trying to track sports bettors to really get involved in the game, because they obviously know odds and everything and they expect transparency. So that's my only thought is like transparency. I bias towards transparency, but I also think for users having a simple, this is the amount of skill you got. And the ones who don't want to understand every single detail, they just want to put in their favorite players and have fun, make it really intuitive for them as well.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I think it's obviously easier to start with less and add more than if you start with everything and then take away. The one concern around that is like, one good thing I think about the League of Legends approach of like not exposing the math is that when you think of the casual user, if there's math out there that you feel like you really have to understand, you just don't. Like, you feel like it's kind of a mental overload. If no one has that data, the casual player can feel like they're actually on an even playing field. And I think if we're going to take this to the absolute level we want to take it to, it does have to still feel easy to learn. And there is the great thing about the testing of this game is that anyone can win a tournament You come in, you pick the right players. The variance is so high, as you say, that people who know nothing about football can top the leaderboard in
Yep.
1 week. Um, Over time, the better players will absolutely rise to the top in
Yep.
that skill system. But in one tournament, anyone can win, and I think that's really exciting because everyone gets their big moment. So yeah, it's just that tension of like the more you put out there, the more people feel they need to know. Versus if we can actually make this feel so intuitive that it just works, maybe people won't feel the need to want every single math formula out there.
Yep. No, that makes a lot of sense. All right, question from 2K. Will we be able to buy through Solana, Hyperliquid, and credit cards, or do you have something with Base?
So at the do you mean for like onboarding like through fiat, like getting your money into the game,
That's
or
my guess. Is I'm reading this as if I have dollars on Solana or I have a credit card, will I be able to participate?
Okay. So you need to bridge USDC to Base somehow. Currently, the easiest way to do that is to send it to your game account from like a MetaMask wallet. We are also working with Coinbase on sort of integrating their payment system. It's super easy to
Mm,
use their Coinbase app to like get funds into your game wallet. The in-game wallets are actually like Coinbase smart wallets underneath, so they do have like a proprietary advantage in using that method. But we're open to other methods anyway. My previous business was in crypto payments, so I do understand like the making it easier for people to pay increases revenue by a lot.
yep. And given you're on Base, just continuing to build out a Coinbase stack makes a good amount of sense.
It makes sense, yeah, and they're we're now the highest volume, highest revenue app on Base. We also kind of broke their rate limit the other week, so we had one of these drops, and it was just absolute chaos. And our engineering team were like, the servers were just not working, and the engineers were like, we just don't understand. So we messaged Base and we're like, hey, is this anything on your end? And they were like, shit, like you guys have actually tripped a rate limit that no one has ever hit before.
Wow.
Because there was just so much demand like during that sort of bit. And they reacted like really fast and they fixed it and everything was good. But yeah, it sure gets you noticed now amongst the kind of leadership of Base. They don't tend to promote a lot of things like heavily. I think they've been, I'm just speculating. No one's told me this, but I think they've been waiting for like really, really high grade apps that are kind of proven before they like over promote them or like tie their reputation to them in some
Yep.
way.
Yep.
And what I'm starting to feel from that team is that they're starting to realize now that we're a really really strong contender. So yeah, we're working quite well with those guys.
Yeah, I mean, they had a disaster with Zora where they were shilling it and the price was down 80%. It was just a really bad look from the outside. I wasn't involved in that or even followed it very closely, but just
Mm.
everything I saw seemed pretty negative. So it's wise that they're being prudent and picking the right winners and then like really supporting them. And obviously you guys are a world-class team and solving one of the big, building games for the most popular sport in the world, soccer. And so as part of that, it's pretty incredible to see your success. All right. Is there any other questions? Otherwise, Adam, maybe as we start to wrap here, is there anything in the app itself that you'd want to showcase? Like, hey, this is the best way I use the app, or anything around picking players, any alpha or wisdom that you have and you would impart to people who want to become on the leaderboard?
Yeah, I would just say certainly if you're a new player, experiment with not overthinking it, and then I'd be really interested in the feedback because this there's a lot of depth to this game that you can uncover as a sort of experienced user and like master it over time. But at face value, you come in, you buy the players that you like. They're all good, pretty much. This is a curation of like the 100 best in world football that we could come up with. There are no players that suck on the platform. you can pick based on preference, as like people you feel affinity to, and still have a good time and be successful. So yeah, I would just come in and like buy the players you think are the best value, the most exciting for you, and just have a good time and see, test out my theory really that the scoring system kind of takes care of itself. Like if the players do well in real life, and the key is like stacking your gold in your biggest conviction plays. So like if you've got 10 players and one of those players is like 40% of your squad value, the game is looking at that and going, this is a conviction pick. So if he performs well, you will get more. If you've got a player who's just like dust in your portfolio, you're not going to get a lot of points if they do well.
Of course.
So the skill system is weighted on like your conviction. I think that's an important factor.
Yeah. And the way that you normalize across players is obviously someone like Mbappe is going to be more expensive than somebody who's, like a different forward. But the thing is, the way it balances, even if they're scored the same way, it's going to be more expensive to activate and enter Mbappe into the tournament. So that's how you normalize across players that are really good. So you can have a strategy of, I buy really good players and they perform well. But It seems like the most winning strategy or the highest alpha strategy would be finding players that are affordable relative to their peer set, but actually post good metrics. That's like the inside alpha and the wedge to win?
Yeah, I guess it depends on your type, your personality type, and what you want to achieve. And I think if you're a passive sort of whale, you're interested in the game, you're not going to be trading 12 times a day, but you want to pick like your favorite guys, you probably want to go to the more like reliable, consistent, and you're probably quite happy to pay the higher price for the player you want because you know they're going to be very consistent.
Yep.
And a lot of our whales, and there are some big whales already on the platform, that's kind of what they do. The other guys at like the value end, and this is very similar to like the way the crypto market works. If you're going to be a very, very active trader, and we've got guys who want to be trading 30, 40 times a day, they do tend to gravitate to the sort of low cap area of the market, because potentially your kind of ceiling on your gain can be a lot higher, but it will be also less consistent. So it's kind of choose your own adventure from that perspective, I think.
Completely makes sense. Completely makes sense. Well, team, this has been a terrific stream. Adam, congratulations on the success that you've had. It has been a thrill to see you be the #1 revenue generating app on Base and platform on Base, app on Base more broadly. Go try Football.Fun if you haven't yet. I've tried the game. I love the game. I am waiting for the NFL version eventually to come, but nonetheless, the football one as it stands today is great as well. Adam, thanks for the time, and keep going.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Cheers.
And thanks for your support as well.
Thanks, everyone.